At our wedding, my husband handed the microphone to his mistress. Hi, everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I met Ryan at a charity gala 3 years ago. I almost didn't go that night. I'd had a terrible week at work. My feet hurt from new heels, and all I wanted was to curl up with a book and a glass of wine. But my friend Jessica insisted, practically dragging me out the door in a borrowed dress that was slightly too tight. The venue was stunning, all crystal chandeliers and flowing champagne. I was nursing my second glass of wine, half listening to Jessica chat with some investment banker, when someone tapped my shoulder. "Excuse me," a voice said, "but I think you dropped this." I turned to find a man holding out my phone. Tall, dark hair, green eyes that seemed to sparkle with amusement. He was gorgeous in that effortless way some men are, wearing a perfectly tailored suit like he was born in it. "Oh my God, thank you," I said, taking it from him. I didn't even realize. "You were pretty absorbed in your conversation," he said with a smile. "I'm Ryan." "Emma." We shook hands and something electric passed between us. I know how cliché that sounds, but it's true. His touch lingered just a moment longer than necessary, and when our eyes met, I felt my breath catch. We talked for the rest of the evening. He was a consultant for tech companies, traveled frequently, had a quick wit and an easy charm that made me feel like I was the only person in the room. When the event ended, he asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation. Our first date was 3 days later. Dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant, then a walk through the city as streetlights flickered on. He held my hand, asked me questions about my life, my dreams, my favorite childhood memories. He listened like every word mattered. "You're different," he told me as we stood on a bridge overlooking the river. "Most people I meet just want to talk about themselves. But you're real. You're genuine." I laughed. "Is that your way of saying I'm boring?" "God, no." He pulled me closer. "It's my way of saying I think I'm falling for you." It was too soon to say something like that. We barely knew each other, but the way he looked at me made me believe him completely. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Ryan was romantic in ways I'd only read about in novels. He sent flowers to my office for no reason. He surprised me with weekend getaways to beach towns and mountain cabins. He remembered small details, like how I took my coffee or that I loved old movies from the 40s. He also traveled a lot for work. Sometimes he'd be gone for a week at a time, calling me from hotel rooms in different cities. I missed him when he was away, but it made our reunions that much sweeter. He'd come back with stories and small gifts, pulling me into his arms like he'd been gone for years. "I hate being away from you," he'd say. "You're the only thing that makes coming home worth it." 8 months into our relationship, he proposed. We were at the same bridge where he'd first told me he was falling for me. He got down on one knee as the sun set behind him, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "Emma, you're my everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even opened the ring box. The ring was beautiful, a princess-cut diamond that caught the light. But I would have said yes to anything. I loved him. I loved him completely. We set the wedding date for 18 months later. I wanted time to plan it properly, to make it the kind of day we'd remember forever. Ryan seemed happy to let me take the lead on most decisions, saying he trusted my taste and just wanted me to be happy. The planning process was both exciting and exhausting. I spent hours looking at venues, tasting cakes, choosing flowers. My mother was thrilled, throwing herself into helping me with every detail. Jessica was my maid of honor, and she kept me sane when I got overwhelmed by seating charts and color schemes. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," she told me one day as we looked at dress options. Ryan's a lucky guy. I found my dress at a boutique in the city. It was ivory silk with delicate lace sleeves, fitted at the waist and flowing into a full skirt. When I tried it on, I cried. This was it. This was the dress I'd wear when I married the love of my life. Ryan seemed excited about the wedding, though sometimes he seemed distracted. When I asked about it, he'd smile and say work was just stressful. He was taking on bigger clients, traveling even more. Sometimes he'd be gone for 10 days at a stretch. I hate leaving you, he'd say before each trip. But once we're married, I'm going to cut back on travel. I want to be home with you. I believed him. I had no reason not to. But there were moments that bothered me. Little things I pushed aside because I didn't want to be one of those paranoid girlfriends. Like the time his phone rang at dinner and he excused himself, taking the call outside. When he came back, he said it was a client emergency. Or the time I tried to surprise him at his apartment and he seemed flustered, like I'd interrupted something. You should have called first, he said, standing in the doorway like he didn't want to let me in. I did call. You didn't answer. I tried to peek past him. Is everything okay? Yeah, of course. Just wasn't expecting company. The place is a mess. He let me in eventually, and the apartment looked fine. Normal. But something felt off, and I couldn't shake the feeling for days. Then there was the woman I saw him with at a coffee shop 6 months before the wedding. I'd finished a meeting early and decided to grab coffee near his office, thinking maybe I could surprise him for lunch. Through the window, I saw him sitting with a blonde woman. They were laughing, leaning close, and for a moment his hand covered hers on the table. My stomach dropped. But when I went inside and approached them, Ryan's face lit up with apparent delight. Emma, what are you doing here? He stood and kissed me. This is Vanessa, a colleague. We're working on the Morrison account together. Vanessa smiled at me, her teeth very white, her eyes cool. Ryan's told me so much about you. Congratulations on the engagement. Thank you, I said, feeling foolish for my moment of suspicion. We chatted for a few minutes, then I left them to their meeting. But something about the interaction nagged at me. The way Vanessa had looked at Ryan. The way he'd seemed almost too casual about introducing us. I mentioned it to Jessica later. Am I being crazy? Maybe a little, she said gently. But it's normal to feel insecure before a wedding. You're making a huge commitment. Some anxiety is expected. So I let it go. I had a wedding to plan, a future to look forward to. I wasn't going to let paranoia ruin what should be the happiest time of my life. As the wedding date approached, Ryan's travel seemed to intensify. He was gone more than he was home. When I complained, he reminded me he was working hard so we could afford the honeymoon I wanted, so we could start our life together on solid financial ground. Just a few more months, he promised. Then things will calm down. I threw myself into the final wedding preparations. The venue was booked, a beautiful historic mansion with gardens for the ceremony and a ballroom for the reception. The guest list was finalized at 150 people. My dress hung in my closet, wrapped in plastic, waiting. I had my final fitting 3 weeks before the wedding. Standing on the pedestal in front of the three-way mirror, I looked at myself and felt tears prick my eyes. This was real. This was happening. Soon I'd be Ryan's wife. The rehearsal dinner was the night before the wedding. Ryan seemed distracted, checking his phone repeatedly. When I asked if everything was okay, he kissed my forehead and said he was just excited and a little nervous. Tomorrow you're going to be my wife, he said. How could I not be nervous? His best man, Kyle, stood up to give a toast. To Ryan and Emma, he said, raising his glass. May you have a lifetime of happiness together. Everyone drank, and I felt a warm glow of contentment. This was my family, my friends, the people who mattered most. And tomorrow I'd pledge my life to the man I loved in front of all of them. That night, I stayed at my parents' house as tradition dictated. Ryan texted me before bed. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I love you. I love you too, I replied. Sweet dreams, future husband. I fell asleep smiling, my heart full of hope and joy. The morning of the wedding was chaos in the best way. My bridesmaids arrived early, bringing mimosas and bagels. My hairstylist worked magic, pinning my hair in an elegant updo. My makeup artist made me look like a better version of myself, glowing and radiant. When I put on my dress, my mother cried. "You're so beautiful," she said, touching my cheek gently. "Your father is going to lose it when he sees you." Jessica helped me with my veil, adjusting it carefully. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," I admitted, "but in a good way. Is that normal?" "Completely normal." She squeezed my hand. "You're going to have the most amazing day." The photographer captured everything. Me stepping into my heels. My father seeing me for the first time, his eyes going shiny with tears. The bridesmaids in their dusty blue dresses laughing as we took group photos. Then it was time. My father walked me down a path lined with white chairs filled with people I loved. At the end of the aisle stood Ryan, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo. When our eyes met, he smiled and my heart soared. This was it. This was everything I'd dreamed of. The ceremony was beautiful. The officiant spoke about love and commitment, about choosing each other every day. We exchanged rings, our hands trembling slightly. When Ryan slipped the band onto my finger, he mouthed, "I love you," and I felt like I might burst from happiness. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. "You may kiss your bride." Ryan pulled me close and kissed me as everyone cheered. We walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, married. I was someone's wife. Ryan's wife. The reception was in the ballroom, decorated in white and gold with hundreds of candles. Our first dance was to a jazz song that reminded us of the night we met. Ryan held me close, whispering in my ear about how beautiful I looked, how lucky he was. Dinner was served. Speeches were made. My father talked about watching me grow up, about knowing from the moment he met Ryan that he'd take care of me. Ryan's mother spoke about how happy she was to gain a daughter. Everyone laughed and cried in equal measure. Then it was time for the groom's speech. This was traditional, expected. Ryan would thank everyone for coming, talk about how much he loved me, maybe make a few jokes. I'd heard him practicing it in the shower last week. He stood up, microphone in hand, and the room fell quiet. I smiled at him from my seat, my heart full of love and contentment. "Thank you all for being here," Ryan began. "Emma and I are so grateful you could celebrate this day with us." He paused, and I noticed he looked nervous. More nervous than during the ceremony. His hand shook slightly as he held the microphone. "I want to be honest with all of you," he continued, "because you deserve the truth. And more importantly, because someone else here deserves recognition." I felt the first flutter of unease in my stomach. What was he talking about? Ryan's eyes scanned the crowd, then landed on someone in the back. "Vanessa, could you come up here, please?" My blood turned to ice. Vanessa? The colleague from the coffee shop? A woman stood up from a table near the back. I recognized her immediately. Blonde hair, slim figure, that same cool smile. She walked to the front of the room with confidence, and Ryan handed her the microphone. The room was silent, confused. I looked at my mother, who looked as bewildered as I felt. Jessica grabbed my hand under the table. Vanessa took the microphone and smiled at the crowd. "Hi, everyone," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I'm Vanessa, and I'm in love with Ryan." The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This had to be a joke, some kind of terrible, tasteless joke. But no one was laughing. "Ryan and I have been together for 2 years," Vanessa continued, as casual as if she were discussing the weather. "We met through work and we fell in love. The problem was he was already engaged to Emma when we started our relationship." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I heard my mother make a sound like she'd been wounded. My father half rose from his seat, his face turning red. I looked at Ryan. He was staring at Vanessa with an expression I couldn't read. Not quite love, not quite regret. Something in between. "Why are we here?" Vanessa went on. Because Ryan wanted to do the right thing. He wanted to honor his commitment to Emma, even though his heart wasn't in it. But I told him that's not fair to anyone. Not to Emma, not to me, and not to himself. I finally found my voice. Ryan. It came out as barely more than a whisper. What is this? He looked at me then, and I saw guilt in his eyes. But not enough. Not nearly enough for what he was doing. I'm sorry, Emma, he said, taking the microphone back from Vanessa. I never meant to hurt you, but I can't lie anymore. I love Vanessa. I've loved her for a long time. Then why did you marry me? My voice was getting louder now, fueled by shock and rage. Why did you go through with this? Why did you stand up there and make vows you didn't mean? I thought I could do it, he said. I thought maybe the feelings for Vanessa would fade, that I'd learn to be content with you. But I can't. I can't live a lie. The room exploded. People were shouting, standing up, demanding answers. My father was on his feet, being held back by my uncle. My mother was crying, her hands over her face. Jessica was next to me, her arm around my shoulders, whispering that we should leave, that we should get me out of here. But I couldn't move. I sat there in my beautiful wedding dress, my veil still pinned in my hair, staring at the man I'd just married and the woman he loved instead of me. Vanessa spoke again, her voice cutting through the chaos. I know this seems cruel, but isn't it crueler to let Emma live a lie? To let her spend years with a man who doesn't truly love her? We're doing her a favor. A favor? I finally stood up, my legs shaking. You think humiliating me in front of everyone I love is a favor? Better now than 5 years from now when you have kids and a mortgage, Vanessa said coolly. At least this way you can move on cleanly. The audacity of her words, the casual cruelty, snapped something inside me. I walked up to her, and for a moment I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Good. She should be afraid. You're pathetic, I said, my voice deadly calm. Both of you. If you wanted to be together so badly, you should have been honest from the start. Instead, you're cowards who couldn't even spare me this humiliation. I turned to Ryan. Did you ever love me? At all? He hesitated, and that hesitation was answer enough. I cared about you, he said. I still do, but it's not the same as what I feel for Vanessa. Then you should have let me go. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I didn't care. You should have ended things before you proposed, before I planned a wedding, before I stood up there and promised you my life. You're not just a liar, Ryan. You're a monster. I pulled off my rings, the engagement ring and the wedding band we'd just exchanged, and threw them at his feet. They bounced and skittered across the floor. I hope you're very happy together, I said to both of them. I hope every time you look at each other, you remember what you did to someone who loved you unconditionally. I hope that haunts you. I turned to leave, but Ryan grabbed my arm. Emma, wait. Don't touch me. I yanked away from him. Don't ever touch me again. Jessica was immediately at my side, along with my mother. They formed a protective barrier as we walked toward the exit. Behind us, I could hear the room erupting again, voices raised in anger and disbelief. My father appeared in front of us, his face still red with rage. I'm going to kill him. No, Dad. I touched his arm. He's not worth it. None of this is worth it. But Emma, please, I just want to leave. My parents, Jessica, and a few close friends escorted me out of the ballroom. We went to one of the mansion's side rooms, away from the crowd. Someone brought me water. Someone else brought tissues. I sat there in my wedding dress, surrounded by people who loved me, and let myself fall apart. How could he do this? I sobbed. How could he stand up there and marry me knowing he loved someone else? Because he's a selfish bastard, Jessica said fiercely. Because he's a coward who doesn't deserve you. My mother held me, stroking my hair like she used to when I was a child. We'll get through this, she promised. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but we will. but I couldn't see how. My wedding day, the day I dreamed about for years, had become a nightmare. Everyone I knew had witnessed my humiliation. The man I loved had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible. How do you come back from that? After about 30 minutes, there was a knock on the door. My father answered it and returned with a grim expression. The venue manager wants to know what to do. People are leaving, but some are staying. The DJ is asking about music. The caterers want to know about serving the meal. I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't feel like it came from me. Tell them to do whatever they want. Have a party, throw the food away. I don't care. Emma, my mother started. Mom, I don't care. I stood up, suddenly desperate to get out of this dress, out of this building, out of this day. I just want to go home. Let me get your things from the bridal suite, Jessica said. Your clothes, your phone, everything. While she was gone, more people came to check on me. My grandmother, who cursed in Italian and said she always knew Ryan was no good. My cousin, who offered to slash his tires. My college roommate, who just hugged me and cried. Everyone was so angry on my behalf, and I appreciated it. But underneath all the support and outrage, I felt utterly alone. This was my pain to bear, my humiliation, my shattered dreams. Jessica returned with my belongings and helped me out of the wedding dress. I changed into the casual clothes I'd planned to wear while traveling to the honeymoon that would never happen now. We left through a side entrance to avoid any remaining guests. My father had already brought his car around. They drove me to my apartment, the one I'd been planning to move out of next week when Ryan and I combined our lives completely. The apartment felt hollow and sad. Boxes were stacked in corners, half-packed. Wedding gifts covered the dining table, still waiting to be opened. Evidence of the life I'd thought I was building, now revealed to be a fantasy. Do you want us to stay? My mother asked. No, I just want to sleep. I hugged her. Thank you for being here. Always, she said. Call me if you need anything. Anything at all. After everyone left, I finally let myself scream. I screamed until my throat was raw, then collapsed on the couch and cried until I had no tears left. My phone buzzed constantly, texts and calls from people checking on me, but I ignored them all, except for one text from an unknown number. This is Vanessa. I know you hate me right now, but I really do think we did the right thing. You deserve someone who loves you completely. Ryan couldn't give you that. Now you're free to find it with someone else. I hope someday you'll understand. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked the number. The next few days were a blur of misery. I called in sick to work. I ignored most calls and texts. I lived in pajamas and survived on whatever food people brought by. My mother came every day with soup or casseroles. Jessica came with wine and terrible reality TV shows. My father came once just to check on me, and I could see the murderous anger still simmering in his eyes. Say the word and I'll make his life hell, he said. I've got lawyers, connections. We can destroy him. Dad, no. I was too tired to even explain why. I just want to forget this ever happened. But that was impossible. The wedding had been well photographed, and somehow photos had leaked online. Our disaster of a wedding reception was being discussed on social media. People were calling Ryan and Vanessa trash, narcissists, sociopaths. A few were calling me pathetic for not seeing the signs. That hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. A week after the wedding, I finally answered a call from Kyle, Ryan's best man. I didn't know why I answered, but something made me do it. Emma, he said, and he sounded genuinely upset. I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was going to do that. Did you know about Vanessa? He hesitated. I knew he'd been seeing someone else, but I didn't know it was serious. And I definitely didn't know he was planning that stunt at the wedding. I swear if I'd known, I would have stopped him. Why didn't you tell me he was cheating? I should have. He sighed. I told myself it wasn't my place, that maybe it was just a phase, that he'd come to his senses. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I hung up without responding. Everyone had failed me. Ryan, Vanessa, Kyle, even myself for not seeing the truth right in front of me. 2 weeks after the wedding, I finally returned to work. My colleagues were awkward at first, not knowing what to say. But eventually, things normalized into a routine that helped me get through the days. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I heard through Jessica that Ryan and Vanessa had moved in together, that they were apparently very happy, that some people who didn't know the full story thought they were a cute couple. I wanted to vomit. I also heard that not everyone was on their side. Several of Ryan's friends had cut ties with him. His family was embarrassed and had reached out to apologize to my family. The company where Ryan and Vanessa both worked was apparently not thrilled about the scandal, and there were rumors Vanessa might be asked to transfer or resign. I took small, petty satisfaction in these pieces of information. But they didn't heal the wound. Nothing did. 3 months after the wedding, I filed for annulment. My lawyer said we had good grounds given the fraud and deception involved. Ryan didn't contest it. We'd been married for approximately 4 hours, and now we'd be unmarried again soon. The legal process forced me to think about everything again, to relive the trauma. But it also gave me something concrete to do, a way to close this chapter officially. Around this time, I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Patel was a kind woman who specialized in trauma and betrayal. She helped me process what happened, to understand that Ryan's actions said everything about him and nothing about my worth. "You trusted someone you loved," she told me. "That's not a weakness. That's what you're supposed to do in a relationship. He's the one who violated that trust." "But how do I ever trust anyone again?" I asked. "How do I not see betrayal around every corner?" "That's what we'll work on," she said gently. "Healing takes time, but you will heal." I wasn't sure I believed her, but I kept going to therapy anyway. I had to do something. 6 months after the wedding, the annulment was finalized. I was legally no longer married to Ryan. It should have felt like a victory, but mostly it just felt sad. A whole chapter of my life reduced to legal paperwork and crossed-out plans. I started slowly rebuilding. I took up painting, something I'd enjoyed in college but had abandoned. I joined a book club. I started running in the mornings, finding something meditative about the rhythm of my feet hitting the pavement. I also started going out with friends again, forcing myself to socialize even when I wanted to hide at home. At a birthday party for one of Jessica's coworkers, I met someone named Chris. He was funny, kind, and when he asked for my number, I almost said no. "I'm not ready to date," I told him honestly. "That's okay," he said with an easy smile. "Can we be friends then? I'm new in town and could use more of those." So we became friends. We'd grab coffee sometimes, or go to museums, or just walk around the city. It was easy and comfortable and not at all romantic, which was exactly what I needed. 8 months after the wedding, I ran into Vanessa at a grocery store. I saw her first and had a split second to decide whether to turn around and leave or face her. Something made me stay. She saw me and froze, her hand on a shopping cart. For a moment, we just stared at each other. "Emma," she finally said. "Vanessa. How are you?" As if this were a normal encounter between acquaintances. "How do you think I am?" I kept my voice level, calm. "You destroyed my wedding day and my life. How would you be?" "I didn't mean to hurt you." She actually looked uncomfortable now. "I was just trying to be honest. You were trying to justify your own terrible behavior." I moved closer, and she actually stepped back. "You could have been honest at any point in the 2 years you were sleeping with my fiancé. Instead, you waited until I was at my most vulnerable, in front of everyone I loved, to make your grand announcement. That wasn't honesty. That was cruelty. I thought it was better than letting you—" "I don't care what you thought." I cut her off. "I don't care about your rationalizations or justifications. You're a terrible person, and I hope you get exactly what you deserve." I walked away, my heart pounding, and didn't look back. In the parking lot, I sat in my car and shook, but not from sadness. From anger. From righteous, clarifying anger. And underneath the anger, I felt something else. Something like strength. A year after the wedding, I was having coffee with Chris when he said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Would you want to go on an actual date with me? Not as friends, as something more. I looked at him, this man who'd been patient and kind, who'd never pushed, who'd just been there. I might not be ready, I warned him. I have a lot of baggage. Everyone has baggage, he said. But I like you, Emma. I have for a while. And I'm willing to take it slow if that's what you need. So we went on a date. Then another. Then another. It was scary and exhilarating and nothing like what I'd had with Ryan. This felt real in a way that hadn't. Chris was present, honest, consistent. When he said he'd call, he called. When he made plans, he kept them. When I asked questions, he answered them truthfully. "Why are you so good to me?" I asked him once. "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "And because I care about you." It took months for me to fully trust it, to believe he wasn't going to betray me the way Ryan had. But gradually I did. My therapist was right. I was healing. 18 months after the wedding, I heard that Ryan and Vanessa had broken up. Apparently, the reality of their relationship didn't live up to the fantasy. Apparently, she'd started seeing someone else behind his back. When Jessica told me, I waited to feel something. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. But I felt nothing. They were strangers to me now. Their drama no longer part of my life. "Don't you feel even a little bit glad?" Jessica asked. "No," I said truthfully. "I just feel free." 2 years after the wedding, Chris proposed. We were at a restaurant, nothing fancy, just our favorite neighborhood spot. He didn't make a big production of it. He just took my hand and said, "I love you. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" I looked at him, this man who'd shown me what real love looked like, and felt tears spring to my eyes. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." We had a small private wedding ceremony 6 months later. Just immediate family and close friends. No elaborate reception, no grand speeches, no microphones that could be handed to someone who might destroy everything. It was simple and perfect and real. My father walked me down the aisle again, and this time when I looked at my groom, I saw nothing but love and certainty in his eyes. When we exchanged vows, I believed every word. When we kissed, I felt complete. At the small dinner afterward, Chris stood to make a toast. "To my wife," he said, looking at me with such genuine affection it made my heart ache in the best way. "Thank you for trusting me with your heart. I promise to never take that for granted." And I believed him. Later, as we were leaving, my mother hugged me tightly. "This is what you deserved all along," she whispered. "I'm so happy for you." I hugged her back, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the humiliation, the long months of healing, the therapy, the anger, the gradual rebuilding of trust. All of it had been necessary to get me here, to this moment, to this man, to this life. I wouldn't wish what happened to me on anyone. The wedding day disaster was the worst experience of my life, a trauma I'll carry forever. But it also taught me something valuable. It taught me that surviving isn't the same as living, that trust has to be earned, that real love shows up consistently and honestly. Ryan and Vanessa gave me the worst day of my life. But in doing so, they also freed me to find something better, something real. I don't know where Ryan is now, and I don't care. I don't know if Vanessa ever found whatever she was looking for. It doesn't matter. They're part of my past, a painful chapter that's closed. My present is Chris, and our little house with the garden I'm learning to tend. It's quiet mornings and inside jokes and building something real together. It's trust earned through consistency and love proven through actions. Sometimes people ask me about my first wedding, the disaster that got documented online and discussed by strangers. I used to hate talking about it, but now I just say, it was the worst day of my life, but it led me to the best parts of my life. Because it did. That terrible day, that cruel betrayal, that public humiliation, it broke me open. But in the broken places, new growth happened. Stronger growth. I'm not grateful for what Ryan and Vanessa did. I never will be. But I'm grateful for what I learned, for the strength I discovered, for the life I built after everything fell apart. That's my story. The wedding where my husband handed the microphone to his mistress, and how I survived it. How I more than survived it. How I eventually thrived. If there's anyone reading this who's going through something similar, who feels like their world has ended, who can't imagine how they'll survive the betrayal and humiliation, I want you to know something. You will survive. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. There will be days when you want to give up, when the pain feels too overwhelming, when you can't imagine ever trusting or loving again. But you will. You'll heal. You'll grow. You'll find yourself again. And you'll find that you're stronger than you ever knew. And someday, maybe years from now, you'll look back at the worst day of your life and realize it was also the day that set you free. Free to find something real, something worthy of you, something that doesn't require you to be anything other than exactly who you are. That's what I found. And you will too. I promise.